The CEO of a billion-dollar business is in damage control after his affair with a colleague was exposed.
What was supposed to be just another magical Coldplay night, stadium lights flashing, love songs echoing, couples swaying, suddenly spiraled into pure chaos. The infamous Kiss Cam that usually gets a few laughs ended up catching something way bigger than a playful moment, and it caught two people who definitely weren't supposed to be that close. The camera stopped right on Andy Byron, billionaire CEO of the tech giant Astronomer, and Kristen Kitt, the company's head of HR, freshly divorced and sitting way too comfortably by his side. Eyewitnesses swear they didn't just bump into each other at the venue. They rolled up together, sat together, and acted like a couple long before the camera exposed them. The second that Kiss Cam zoomed in, their whole vibe collapsed. The footage shows them freezing, ducking, panicking, like two people who just realized they'd been caught in 4K. And then Chris Martin himself chimed in with a joke to the crowd. But insiders say it wasn't harmless at all. That single offhand remark lit the fuse, and within hours the internet exploded. Screenshots spread everywhere, timelines flooded with memes, and
Coldplay threw a couple on the Kiss Cam. Turns out they were having an affair? I don't think even Coldplay can fix this.
Astronomer CEO Andy Byron has resigned.
Casual concert moment turned into a scandal that no one could ignore. Twitter didn't just react, it went nuclear. And while fans were laughing, others noticed something chilling. Andy Byron's wife quietly changed her last name on social media just hours after the clip dropped. Maybe coincidence, but people close to the family say she wasn't laughing at all. Public reaction was savage, but one voice cut through louder than most. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro. In a now viral clip, he didn't waste time talking about music or Coldplay's set list. Instead, he dragged Andy's decision to show up in public with someone who wasn't his wife, acting like nobody would notice. His tone was ice cold and unforgiving. He called it not just bad judgment, but proof of what he described as a crumbling moral compass in corporate culture. And whether you agree with him or not, he wasn't the only one saying it. Commentators from politics to Hollywood echoed the same point. This wasn't just about being caught, it was about being caught on a giant stadium screen in front of thousands of fans during a Coldplay show. The timing made it 10 times worse. And if you thought this was just a one-off mistake, think again. Insiders whispered that this wasn't the first time. The concert was simply the night the mask finally slipped. The cozy nights, the lingering glances, the rumors. It had been building for months, and now the world saw it for themselves. But here's where things went from scandal to straight-up corporate disaster. Multiple sources claim Astronomer's board of directors went into full-blown emergency mode within just 24 hours of the clip going viral. Crisis talks were called immediately.
This whole Andy Byron affair with Kristen Kitt is probably the most gripping cheating scandal this nation has seen.
Suddenly, HR policies buried in dusty handbooks and the kind no one ever reads that became front and center in the company's biggest storm yet. And this isn't just gossip anymore. Insiders say this could spark a full-blown legal and corporate domino effect. With power dynamics, workplace rules, and billion-dollar reputations all on the line, this was no longer just about a kiss cam, it was about the survival of an empire. To really grasp how wild this situation got, you've got to rewind, because the lead up to that stadium moment may have been even messier than the kiss cam itself. On the surface, a concert kiss cam feels like harmless fun, a goofy tradition that gets the crowd cheering. But when the wrong faces pop up on that giant jumbotron, the spotlight doesn't just capture a smile. It exposes secrets nobody was ready to see. From the outside, this looks like a viral joke, a PR mishap that would blow over with a few memes. But insiders say the reality inside Astronomer was way darker. Within mere hours of that clip spreading, employees were whispering about emergency Zoom calls, frozen projects, and even a confidential legal memo circulating through Slack labeled as sensitive reputational matters. Imagine logging into work expecting business as usual, and suddenly your whole feed is speculation about your CEO. Astronomer's private channels lit up like a wildfire. One anonymous employee told reporters everyone knew something was off between them, but nobody thought it would explode like this. What started as a playful moment on camera had allegedly triggered panic mode, an HR investigation.
Okay. Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
Nervous nervous shareholders, and what sources are calling a full-scale image management protocol straight out of crisis PR textbooks. This wasn't just about two execs caught being cozy. Insiders claim this was the public unmasking of a relationship that had already been making people uneasy for months. And now, that very relationship was threatening to drag an entire billion-dollar empire down with it. Meanwhile, outside the glass walls of corporate headquarters, the internet's tone shifted fast. At first, it was all jokes, memes, and Coldplay lyric remixes. But within hours, laughter turned into disgust. The question that kept echoing online was brutal. If this is what they do in public, what on earth has been happening in private? And right on cue, conservative commentator Ben Shapiro jumped into the storm. He zeroed in on the scandal like a hawk, saying this wasn't just a casual lapse in judgment, it was a calculated sequence of choices. Attending a public concert, sitting close, touching, laughing, acting comfortable with someone who wasn't your spouse, and worse, someone in a subordinate role, wasn't just reckless, he argued, it screamed arrogance. Then came the dagger line that had everyone talking. If you only feel shame once you've been exposed, you were never trying to do the right thing in the first place. That stung. And almost instantly, that clip of Shapiro's take ricocheted across the internet. Reaction videos popped up everywhere, debate threads racked up thousands of comments, and social media started dissecting every frame of the footage like it was a crime scene. And here's the kicker. Sources close to astronomers say that commentary didn't just go viral online, it sent shockwaves straight into the company itself, sparking even more paranoia about what might come next. Ben Shapiro's harsh remarks didn't just stir debate online, they lit a fire inside Astronomer itself. Executives and employees suddenly found themselves in uncomfortable conversations about personal conduct, ethics, and the company's crumbling image. And the ugliest part? The power dynamic was impossible to ignore. Kristen Kitt wasn't some random staffer. She was the head of human resources, the very gatekeeper of company culture, the enforcer of conflict resolution, the one meant to police behavior. And yet insiders were alleging she was tied up with the very man those policies were supposed to restrain, the CEO himself. The irony was so sharp it cut through the company like a blade. Employees whispered what everyone had been thinking for months. How can you report a problem to HR when HR is the problem? That single question became the nightmare hanging over Astronomer's reputation. Suddenly, this wasn't just a scandal about two people caught cozy on a jumbotron. It was about the collapse of trust itself. Legal experts quickly weighed in, saying even the appearance of impropriety could wreck a billion-dollar brand. Favoritism, coercion, misuse of power, and these weren't just hypotheticals anymore. They were looming scenarios hovering over Astronomer like a storm cloud. The Kiss Cam was only the spark, but what came after was the wildfire. The viral moment triggered an immediate internal audit that insiders say went deep. Kristen's entire HR record was reportedly dragged into the spotlight. Senior employees allegedly dug through Slack messages, travel receipts, and calendar invites, hunting for proof of what had been whispered for months. Reports claim Kristen joined Andy Byron on trips where no other execs were present, and even slipped into confidential board meetings that her role didn't require. Red flags everywhere. One staffer told journalists bluntly, "There were whispers for months, but we never had proof." That video changed everything, and now legal teams are tearing through files trying to determine if company money was misused or if favoritism fast-tracked Kristen's rise to power. But the chaos didn't stop there. Astronomer was gearing up for a massive IPO, aiming to go public within 18 months. Insiders now warn that Andy Byron's golden dream might be slipping through his fingers. One investor speaking anonymously admitted that key funding talks have already stalled. Their words cut deep. No one wants to put millions into a scandal. This isn't just bad optics, it's a leadership crisis. Financial analysts piled on, pointing out that in the tech world, perception is everything. If investor confidence wavers, Astronomer's entire future could collapse before it even hits Wall Street. Worse, if investigators uncover ignored complaints or broken ethics policies, regulators could come knocking, and sources claim some employees are secretly begging for that oversight. Meanwhile, outside Astronomer's walls, the fallout only grew darker. Public opinion swung hard. What began as a playful meme fest turned into sheer disgust and relentless scrutiny. And in the digital age, scrutiny doesn't fade. It multiplies. At first, the internet clowned the awkward moment, roasting Coldplay as the worst soundtrack for a scandal. But hours later, the laughter died, and the witch hunt began. Old Instagram posts from Kristen resurfaced, snaps from executive retreats, dinner tables with two wine glasses just a little too close, cryptic captions about trust and climbing higher. None of it was proof alone, but stacked together, it painted a picture that screamed suspicion. And then the bombshell. Anonymous tips hit multiple media outlets alleging the romance may have started before Kristen's divorce was even finalized. If true, that added an entirely new layer of betrayal to the mess. Journalists and legal teams are reportedly digging into those claims as we speak. For now, Andy Byron and Kristen Kitt have stayed silent, but insiders whisper that silence can't last forever. Pressure is building by the hour, and the longer they hide, the louder the speculation grows. Meanwhile, Ben Shapiro doubled down, releasing a follow-up podcast where he sharpened his criticism even further. He argued this was never about gossip or a silly Coldplay clip. It was about accountability. In his words, the so-called elite class thinks they can do whatever they want until reality blasts them on a giant jumbotron. Ben Shapiro's words cut deep. You can't cancel a consequence. That take went viral, not because it was outrageous, but because so many people agreed. It summed up the scandal perfectly. This wasn't about a kiss, it was about arrogance, plain and simple. And insiders warned the story wasn't over, more receipts could still be on the way. What started as messy internet gossip was quickly mutating into something far more dangerous, a full-blown legal chess match. Multiple reports claimed Andy Byron's legal team reached out to Coldplay's reps with what insiders described as strongly worded concerns over the use of the Kiss Cam footage. Some even whispered that Byron's lawyers were floating early talks about possible legal action against the band. Or even Chris Martin himself, allegedly for drawing attention to what Byron's side wanted framed as nothing more than a private misunderstanding. But entertainment lawyers moved quickly to shut that down. Most agreed the idea was laughable. As one blunt attorney put it, if you're at a public concert, on a jumbotron, cozying up in a way that gets attention, that's not invasion of privacy, that's optics, period. Still, reports say Byron was furious. He believed that one viral clip destroyed his reputation overnight, humiliating his family, spooking investors, and shaking his entire company to the core. And while he was raging behind the scenes, Astronomer itself was collapsing from the inside. Morale hit rock bottom. Anonymous complaints reportedly poured into HR, the same department Kristen once controlled. Sources claim multiple employees even demanded outside mediators, saying they no longer trusted leadership accused of breaking the very rules they were meant to enforce. And in a bitter twist, insiders whispered that Kristen herself had been quietly placed on administrative leave pending review. No official word yet, but one employee summed it up cold. It's not just what they did, it's who they did it with. Power matters, and everybody here knows it. Behind closed doors, Astronomer's board scrambled like never before. Outside consultants were allegedly hired to calculate the fallout, legal, financial, reputational, but of keeping Byron in charge. And the crisis playbook on the table was brutal. Reports suggest options included a temporary CEO shuffle or the nuclear option, forcing Byron to resign. Nothing was finalized, but while the board was panicking, the internet was already racing miles ahead. Digital sleuths started digging like detectives on a crime scene. LinkedIn connections wiped, old tweets deleted, archived photos resurfaced. According to Reddit threads and fan forums, Andy and Kristen might have been spotted together as far back as last year at a Lisbon conference. Company snapshots allegedly showed them side by side at dinners and even late night after parties. Sure, none of it was smoking gun proof, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict was already locked in. TikTok creators broke down the Kiss Cam moment frame by frame. Twitter stamped the scandal with a brutal nickname, Coldplay date, and journalists began circling with the one question everyone inside Astronomer feared most. Behind Astronomer's polished glass walls, the pressure cooker was reaching its breaking point. Sources say the boardroom turned into a battlefield, not over company strategy, but over whether Andy Byron could even survive as CEO. Investors were demanding answers, employees were whispering about cover-ups, and every hour the Coldplay clip stayed trending, the company's value bled out like water through a cracked pipe. Insiders described frantic late-night meetings where directors debated exit strategies. Some argued that keeping Byron in place would show strength, a weather-the-storm strategy, but others weren't buying it. They insisted that his presence was now toxic, and every minute he stayed risked permanent damage to Astronomer's brand. One source leaked that one director flat out said, "This isn't about protecting Andy anymore, it's about saving the company," and the stakes couldn't be higher. Astronomer's long-awaited IPO, once hyped as a billion-dollar Wall Street darling, now looked like it might collapse before launch. Analysts warned that institutional investors would run the second they smelled scandal, and private whispers suggested at least one major fund had already quietly backed away from negotiations. Meanwhile, employees on the ground weren't waiting for official memos. They were leaking their frustrations to anyone who would listen. Anonymous testimonies started trickling to journalists. Complaints about favoritism, questionable promotions, and an atmosphere where speaking up felt impossible. One chilling line, reportedly from an internal chat, summed up the mood. If the people making the rules don't follow them, then why should any of us? As this storm raged inside Astronomer, the internet kept feeding it gasoline. Amateur sleuths uncovered old travel itineraries and grainy photos that seemed to place Andy and Kristen at the same events again and again. From tech conferences in Europe to luxury retreats in California, breadcrumbs were everywhere, and the online crowd pieced them together like detectives solving a crime scene. Each new receipt sparked another wave of outrage, another round of viral TikToks, another trending hashtag. The scandal wasn't just a Coldplay meme anymore. It had become a symbol. Commentators painted Astronomer as the poster child for corporate arrogance, where the elite at the top lived by one set of rules while everyone else got punished for less. The narrative was ugly and it was sticking fast. Inside the company, the ripple effects deepened. Reports claimed multiple HR complaints that had been dismissed months ago were suddenly being re-examined under a microscope. Rumors spread that regulators were quietly reaching out to current and former employees, testing the waters for potential investigations. One employment lawyer told the press bluntly, "This is how class action lawsuits are born." And while Andy Byron kept silent, his silence spoke volumes. Every day he stayed quiet, speculation grew louder. Was he negotiating his own exit package? Was he preparing to fight back? Or was he simply paralyzed, watching the empire he built crumble in real time? Meanwhile, Kristen's situation wasn't faring any better. With her on administrative leave, colleagues described the atmosphere as haunted. Every Slack ping felt like a potential leak, every hushed hallway conversation another secret ready to hit the press. She had once been the enforcer of rules, but now she was the face of hypocrisy in the eyes of her peers. And then came the leaks from investors themselves. One insider claimed that private WhatsApp groups among major stakeholders were on fire, with some urging immediate leadership changes while others fretted about the cost of forcing Byron out. But one line kept popping up again and again: better a shakeup now than a collapse later. The scandal had metastasized. No longer just a juicy gossip clip, but a full-on corporate crisis with financial, legal, and reputational stakes all colliding at once. And as the board scrambled for a plan, the internet's verdict was already sealed. Astronomer wasn't just in trouble, it was on the brink of implosion. The Coldplay Kiss Cam scandal didn't just rewrite one night, it rewrote an entire empire. What began as a playful moment at a concert ballooned into one of the messiest corporate dramas Silicon Valley has ever seen. The whispers, the leaks, the boardroom battles, they all painted the same ugly truth. This wasn't about music, it wasn't even about a kiss. It was about power, arrogance, and the cracks that appear when those at the top think the rules don't apply to them. Andy Byron went from being celebrated as a tech visionary to being dissected like a cautionary tale in real time. His silence only fueled the flames, leaving the internet, investors, and even his own employees to fill in the blanks. Kristen Kitt, once the enforcer of company ethics, found herself on the opposite end of the policies she was sworn to uphold. And together, their downfall became the internet's obsession, a live case study of how fast reputations can collapse when secrets meet the spotlight. Regulators are rumored to be circling, investors are allegedly drafting contingency plans. Former employees are quietly lawyering up, and Astronomer, a company once prepping for $1 billion IPO, is now a brand name synonymous with scandal. In the digital age, you don't get the luxury of silence. Every second of denial only writes the story louder. But outside the glass walls of Astronomer, the world kept watching, analyzing, and laughing in equal measure. Social media turned the saga into memes, TikToks, and even a hashtag Coldplay date that refuses to die. The clip has been replayed, remixed, and studied frame by frame, becoming more than gossip. It's now a cultural symbol, a reminder that in the age of jumbotrons and viral screenshots, nothing stays private when the spotlight finds you. And maybe that's why this story hits so hard, because it's not just about Andy and Kristen anymore. It's about what happens when power, privilege, and ego crash into accountability in front of the whole world. One split second, one camera pan, and suddenly 2 careers, 1 company, and an entire legacy are left dangling in the balance. So what do you think? Was this the ultimate betrayal of trust? A tragic case of arrogance catching up to the elite? Or just a viral moment that spiraled out of control? One thing's for sure, the Coldplay Kiss Cam didn't just capture a scandal, it exposed a culture. And trust me, this is only the beginning, because in the digital age, scandals don't fade, they echo. The real question now is, who's next? If you made it this far, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more explosive breakdowns, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this video with someone who loves the tea as much as you do. See you on the next one.